reason why I chose a platformer initially was because I wanted a simple world with simple rules that would be easy to picture in your mind what could happen, you know, and that would help, because this rewinding thing and all the different things that can happen with time, I mean, they're not super complicated once you get used to them, but they're not the way that you're used to thinking. And so I wanted to have a simple backdrop for that to take place. And once I had that simple backdrop, other things came to mind, like, oh yes, I don't have to explain too much about, you know, oh, you jump on monsters' heads to kill them, because people know that.
And I actually think also towards that comfort zone area is the graphical style of the game.
One of the most important aspects of the art direction that we talked about consistently was always clarifying what the player could touch and what he couldn't, because you need to be able to apprehend immediately what you're looking at, and not to go through a period of confusion, not to make the puzzles unnecessarily complicated, and not to mislead the player in any way. But there's a kind of thematic reason also, which has to do with the variation between highly detailed artwork and like you said, impressionistic artwork. Right, the Braid world is a fluid, changing world where the rules can change, and as you go from place to place, there are different laws that governing the action. And embedded in the game is this idea that the world can be revised, and also that the world is a creation of human thought, or that our thoughts, and that's part of the story.
And you've got, you know, real world solid in front of you. You've got impression and distance behind you, and the interplay between those two things. Kind of, when I was watching you play, I was trying to classify, you know, my emotional response to this, which is something that I don't usually do in game. Braid really got that to me, and I was literally thinking, how do I feel when I'm looking at this game?
I mean, I credit the game design a lot for that, because I think that the game gives you space to have a reaction. You know, it's not measuring you and reprimanding you and forcing you to worry about things that would put you in a kind of like resource management, worrying kind of mode.
Right, because like the controlling time, the rewinding time is unlimited,
right,
essentially.
Yeah, and stuff like the story just being there, and if you stand in front of a podium, you get it, you can walk past, and it's kind of like, that's one of my favorite things about the game, that there's all of its best stuff is kind of latent, and it's just waiting for you to invest something, and then it's there. The game is a good conversationalist for me because it kind of listens a lot, or it kind of leaves a lot of open space, and there's a nice, like, welcoming feeling when you invest in it.
You could walk right past puzzles that you weren't ready to solve, or that you couldn't solve right away, you hadn't figured out just yet, and so there is you could go back to different parts of the world at different times. And
I think that that's one style of play. Like, there's going to be some players who are like, I want to see the end of the game, and I'm going to beat this game, right?
Sure.
And they're just going to run past everything, and I think that they would get the feeling that they're missing something, right? And that's fine. It's trying to be an interesting place for you to feel things and see things and discover things. And it's got some things that it recommends, you know, like, hey, look at this time stuff. But if you wanted to ignore that, you could. You couldn't win without doing that, but you could still do some interesting things in the space. Because you can visit all of the worlds in an almost arbitrary order and solve the puzzles in an arbitrary order, the story can actually be visited non-linearly also, to a certain extent. And so it's not your classic linear game story. It's more like, here are different pieces of, like, maybe things in a scrapbook or something. Like, they're juxtaposed off each other, and together they combine to build this whole picture somehow. The world is about vagueness and revision, because that ties back into time, right? If you can rewind and change things in the past and whatever, what is history, right? What is the future? There's always something that the player can bring to the way he reads it, and hopefully there will be a lot of interesting discussions about the fiction.
And one of the things that I'm actually really looking forward to is taking the puzzle pieces and building the pictures in the hub world, because you said that those are evocative of whatever that level's particular theme is.
The image represents in some way, it's both an acknowledgement that you've completed that world and that you had this certain set of experiences, but it also is, it's viewing that theme of that world from a different angle, right? So there's several things that combine to create the feeling of one world. There's the actual behavior of time that you play, right? There's the art behind the world, what are the colors and what's the style? And then there's the fiction, right, which is the metaphor for the gameplay. And all of those things work together, right? And then that final image that you put together is kind of a different window onto those same ideas. It's never just going to be like, oh, you played through this world where you can rewind, and so the picture is of you rewinding now. There's nothing very interesting about that. Like, that would be kind of a letdown to put that together. It's something different that you can think about and interpret.
I think there is a lot of care in the game design of Braid, and I think there is a lot of care in the art. And it was funny because, like, when you were showing us the demo, I asked you, like, so what are these? You're the level artist, and I asked, so, or you're the world artist, and so I asked, are these tile sets? How did you make these? But they're actually just, you know, one large canvas, or, you know, with some large pieces that are going together, right?
Irregular pieces that can be put together and sort of overlapped. So there'll be a rock or a little edge of a cliff or a piece of ground or whatever. And then they have fuzzy edges, so you can sort of overlap them and they look like they flow into each other. And so that's how we...
And so the effect is organic as opposed to, you know, here's this tile repeated X times. Yeah. And does that play into the theme of the game overall as well?
Tiles are by definition very structured and well defined, right?
Yeah.
Like, they fit in a box, and there's a bunch of boxes. And
Right.
That's not the world of
It wouldn't have been the right look.
Yeah.
And it also is a more... You can definitely, like, do great art with tiles, but it does look more... It's very rigid, and it's a clear... And I think Braid has a handmade, personal look to it. And like John pointed out, the books, like there are 5 books there, and there are several different books, and your eye kind of notices, or you don't see a repetition. You sort of have a feel that they're organic.
9 out of 10 times, I would never expect to see that in a game where they just copy and paste. You know, that's level design 101. It's
Right,
like,
yeah.
find, you know, you make a column, make a wall, and just repeat the whole way down. And you're not used to seeing that, and that makes you look at it differently.
Which brings us back to our strategy, which is to outspend the competition.
How did you guys collaborate?
I was doing a comic with a friend of mine at the time, so I like small collaborative projects, and I did this webcomic for a while, but that was kind of winding down, and it felt very comfortable to me to go into that that space thematically.
The game's been in development over 3 years.
Yeah.
Didn't have to be, right? It was actually the version that won the IGF Game Design Award was submitted to them in December 2005. It was fully playable from end to end. The puzzles have been revised and they're a little better now, but they were basically all there. So it's been 2 years and a few months of just refining the game.
I kind of wanted to ask you about that because when you talk to a lot of independent developers, one of the huge pros that they would say about being independent is shorter development times. Where a lot of them are like, oh my goodness, the idea of working 5 years on a single project is just completely overwhelming for me. And even when we talked to Phil Fish about Fez, he had said, you know, I've been working on Fez for a year. And even that is starting to be like, this is a long time to be working on a game. And you said 3 years you've been working on Braid. When you go on to your next project or anything, I mean, is that kind of something you're looking forward to? Is maybe something like you could just spend 6 months on or 8 months on? Or are you more of the mentality of, I'll spend as much time working on a project as long as I'm excited about it and until it's done?
You know, I have game ideas that would be short, but maybe by the time I do them, they'll be 3 years. I really don't want that. I don't want to spend 3 years on my next game.
Right. I gotcha.
But if that's what has to be done to make it good, then I will.